I don't care how good they is right now. It's a whole different ball game, bro. With somebody holding on your shorts the whole way to the basket.
Legal. And it's legal.
Come on, man.
When you run through the paint and you can get bumped, it's different. And that's my argument with people. It's like, it ain't no disrespect to anybody because they're all great. And you're going to argue back and forth and everybody's going to have their opinion. But I'm saying, which rules are we using?
As far as inspiration, I didn't take much inspiration from Vince.
8 consecutive trips to the NBA Finals. 10 appearances overall. At first glance, that sounds like total dominance. But NBA icon Vince Carter just made a statement that has the basketball world rethinking everything people believed about LeBron James and his legacy. And this wasn't some emotional rant or random hot take. Carter backed it up with evidence, undeniable facts, and historical perspective that's extremely hard to dismiss.
You just have to find... Maybe you don't play Bron as many minutes in the first quarter and bring him back, a little later in the second quarter. He could play longer stretches that way. It's just something they have to tweak and figure it out.
Vince Carter didn't come there to disrespect anyone. He came to speak honestly. During what looked like an ordinary retirement interview in early 2025, Carter was asked where LeBron James belongs in NBA history. That's when the conversation took a completely different turn. Vince began carefully and respectfully. I respect LeBron. The tension in the room eased for a second. Everyone assumed the usual compliments were coming next. But then Carter shifted gears completely. But let's really talk about what people are calling dominance. The interviewer's face instantly changed. Total disbelief. Then Carter went right at the heart of the debate. That Eastern Conference from 2011 through 2018 wasn't dominance. It was basically a clear highway with nobody blocking the road. The room fell completely silent. It felt like everyone stopped breathing at once. But Vince still wasn't done making his point. He pushed even further. According to Carter, LeBron's journey to those finals appearances wasn't just manageable. It may have been one of the least difficult paths any superstar has had during a finals run in NBA history. An absolute bombshell statement. It didn't take long for the clip to spread everywhere online. Twitter exploded into arguments. Instagram became a battlefield between LeBron fans and longtime basketball traditionalists. And maybe the most revealing part of all, several former NBA players reportedly agreed with Carter privately. They just weren't willing to say it publicly because they knew the criticism would be brutal. But Carter didn't make the claim without evidence. He backed it up with numbers and context. And once you actually look deeper into the stats, the argument becomes far more interesting. Yes, LeBron made 8 straight NBA Finals from 2011 to 2018, an accomplishment that sounds unbelievable at first glance. But the bigger question is this frowny face. Who exactly was standing in his way during those years?
That's well said. And that's what I said, because you're going to always ruffle feathers. If you're a diehard Bron fan, you think it's disrespect when you say otherwise about him, Kobe, and Mike. So it's going to be an ongoing battle because unless they ever played against each other. Just imagine them playing against each other.
Whew. So for the record, you got MJ, Kobe, and then LeBron?
Yes. Can
LeBron, in your opinion, with LeBron's maybe 2-3 years left, maybe 4, does he have an opportunity in your mind to possibly jump Kobe?
He has an opportunity. I mean, and it's just gonna be based off of
the Eastern Conference during that era wasn't just considered weak. Many people viewed it as historically thin on elite competition. Teams barely finishing above .500 were suddenly treated like serious contenders simply because someone had to occupy playoff spots. In several of those seasons, the second-best team in the East likely wouldn't have even survived the early rounds in the Western Conference. Some might not have qualified for the Western playoffs at all. That isn't just criticism or opinion. The records back it up. The win totals tell the story clearly. Throughout LeBron's 8-year finals streak, only a small handful of Eastern Conference playoff teams managed to reach 55 wins or more. Meanwhile, the Western Conference was loaded every season with powerhouse teams winning 55-plus games regularly. Out west, true championship-caliber teams were getting knocked out before they could even reach the finals. That's how brutal the competition was. Elite squads capable of winning a title were being eliminated in the first round because every matchup felt like a war. Vince Carter specifically highlighted LeBron James' Miami Heat years from 2011 through 2014 as the clearest example. When you compare the opponents Miami faced in the East to the battles happening nightly in the Western Conference, the contrast feels massive. LeBron's road to the finals looked less like surviving a gauntlet and more like a procession toward the throne. That's why Carter's comments hit so hard. The statistics and context give real weight to his argument. And sometimes the truth people resist most is the one that lands hardest. The Boston Celtics? Their legendary Big Three era was fading fast, running more on reputation and experience than dominance. The Indiana Pacers played with toughness and determination, but realistically, few believed they could beat teams like the San Antonio Spurs, Oklahoma City Thunder, or Golden State Warriors in a 7-game series. That's the central point Carter was making. The Western Conference existed on a completely different level of competition. While LeBron maneuvered through a relatively forgiving Eastern bracket, the West was a non-stop battlefield. The Spurs were still operating like a dynasty machine, with Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili executing almost flawless basketball under Greg Popovich. The Thunder had Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook at the peak of their powers. The Los Angeles Clippers were electrifying during the Lob City era, led by Chris Paul and Blake Griffin. Meanwhile, the Warriors were quietly building what many would later call the greatest dynasty basketball has ever seen. The Houston Rockets had James Harden torching defenses night after night, and even the gritty Memphis Grizzlies could physically wear down any opponent with their relentless defensive style. Every playoff round in the Western Conference felt like a heavyweight championship fight. Elite teams were knocking each other out before the NBA Finals even began. Spurs versus Thunder? Absolute chaos stretched across 7 exhausting games. Warriors versus Spurs? A showcase of elite-level basketball from start to finish. And here's the part that fueled Carter's argument even more. Many believe those Western Conference teams would have rolled through the Eastern bracket with far less resistance. What made Carter's comments resonate even more was his personal experience. He wasn't speaking as an outsider guessing from afar. He played in both conferences. He lived through the difference firsthand. He felt the physical grind, the nightly intensity, and the level of competition with every game his body endured.
I wanted to get your take on LeBron because you played against him since he was a young pup. What's the biggest difference of him then and now in terms of how he just keeps getting better?
Dedication. He has goals in mind, what he wants to accomplish, and it's clear that he wants to be the greatest. You know, when he's saying, I want to play so many years, like I'm saying, I want to play as long as I can. Mm-hmm. He wants to be the greatest. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, those are people that we throw around. He wants to be there. So I think now...
Vince Carter described the transition from the Eastern Conference to the Western Conference like stepping out of casual basketball and into full-scale warfare. The speed of the game increased. The physicality became harsher. The talent level skyrocketed. Everything felt amplified. Road trips through the West were exhausting tests of survival. One night you were dealing with the precision and discipline of a San Antonio Spurs. The next game, you were battling rising talent in Portland Trail Blazers territory. After that came the chaos of Lob City and the Los Angeles Clippers. Then you had to race up and down the floor against the explosive pace of the Phoenix Suns. Every arena felt dangerous because every opponent looked capable of making a championship run. Now compare that with the road LeBron James often traveled in the East. Sure, there were strong teams like Miami or Cleveland at times. But beyond that, the competition usually consisted of squads like the Indiana Pacers, the Atlanta Hawks, or the pre-titled Toronto Raptors. Respectable teams, yes, but not teams many considered true championship killers. According to Carter, the difference was massive. Out west, teams fought every night just to survive. Out east, many teams were simply trying to avoid embarrassment. Carter didn't soften his opinion. He believed the real championship battles happened in the Western Conference. By the time the NBA Finals arrived, many felt the toughest series had already taken place before anyone even reached the final stage. Then comes the discussion surrounding LeBron's supporting casts, which further complicated the underdog narrative. In 2011, LeBron didn't just sign with the Miami Heat. He joined forces with elite superstars. Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh were not ordinary teammates. They were proven all-stars in their prime years. That roster was designed specifically to dominate the league. And within the Eastern Conference, it overwhelmed almost everyone. Very few franchises possessed enough star power to challenge them seriously. The Boston Celtics were aging. The Chicago Bulls had Derrick Rose carrying the franchise before injuries changed everything. Most other teams were simply hoping to stay competitive. When LeBron later returned to the Cleveland Cavaliers, the formula looked familiar. Another star-heavy roster was assembled. Kevin Love arrived while Kyrie Irving developed into a superstar. 3 elite talents in their prime years surrounded by carefully selected role players. Meanwhile, many Eastern Conference teams struggled to even field a single all-star. The balance of power felt uneven before the season even started. The Western Conference, however, operated differently. The Spurs relied on chemistry, discipline, and a flawless system instead of forming a traditional super team. The Golden State Warriors built their dynasty internally, developing Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green into championship-caliber stars. The Oklahoma City Thunder drafted and developed their own core as well. Those Western teams grew through losses, experience, and constant battles against each other. There were no shortcuts. Every season was a war against evenly matched contenders. That's why Carter's criticism resonated with so many people. To him, this wasn't about jealousy or bitterness. It was about context and first-hand experience. He argued that the East became LeBron's territory, while the West remained the NBA's true proving ground. According to Carter, stacking the roster in a weaker conference was smart strategy, potentially legendary strategy even. But he questioned whether it should be viewed the same as surviving the relentless brutality Western Conference teams faced every postseason. Then Carter raised the question that completely reshaped the debate. What would LeBron's career have looked like if he had spent his prime years in the Western Conference? Would he still have reached 10 finals? Would 8 straight finals appearances still have happened? Carter clearly doubted it, and once people started imagining those playoff paths, the debate became much harder to dismiss. Picture the scenario. LeBron's Miami Heat from 2011 to 2014 competing in the West. Round 1 could have meant facing the gritty Memphis Grizzlies and their brutal, grinded-out style. Every possession would feel physical and exhausting. Survive that, and next comes either the Spurs or Thunder. One series forces you to solve the timeless excellence of Tim Duncan and the tactical brilliance of Greg Popovich. The next throws Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook at you during the peak of their dominance. And even if you somehow survive those wars, another challenge would likely be waiting in the form of the rising Warriors dynasty or the high-flying Clippers. Now compare that with many of LeBron's actual Eastern Conference playoff runs. Early round matchups against teams like the Charlotte Bobcats, the Giannis Antetokounmpo Milwaukee Bucks, or early versions of the Brooklyn Nets. Then perhaps the Pacers or the Bulls before injuries dismantled that roster. By the conference finals, opponents often included teams like the Hawks or Raptors. Solid organizations, but not teams many believed were true title favorites. Most fans understood the reality. Those teams were fighting to stay respectable, not expected to win championships. Then came the real-life test many people point to. When LeBron finally joined the Los Angeles Lakers in the West, the immediate results changed dramatically. His first season ended without a finals appearance. The Lakers didn't even make the playoffs. After 8 straight finals trips in the East, that sudden shift became central to Carter's argument. The Western Conference wasn't simply tougher. It was a completely different level of survival basketball. Once Carter's comments spread online, the reaction exploded instantly. LeBron's enormous fan base rushed to defend him. Social media turned chaotic. Arguments became personal. A common response was that Carter sounded bitter because he never won a championship ring. But others argued that criticism avoided the real discussion entirely as more context surfaced. People began taking Carter's perspective more seriously. Analysts who covered eras dominated by Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant started weighing in. Soon the basketball world split into 2 clear sides. Younger fans who grew up watching LeBron dominate struggled to accept the idea that his finals path may not have been as difficult as it appeared. Meanwhile, older fans who witnessed Jordan's Eastern Conference wars and Kobe surviving brutal Western playoff runs believed Carter was simply describing what they had seen for years. Even some current NBA players quietly hinted agreement through social media activity and vague interview comments. The message underneath it all was obvious. People understood exactly what Carter was implying. One anonymous veteran reportedly told a reporter that discussing the topic honestly had become almost impossible because emotions immediately took over. According to him, many people around the league privately agreed with Carter but avoided speaking publicly because LeBron's influence and fan base were too massive to challenge directly. That's why the debate exploded online. At its core, people recognized there was at least some truth worth discussing. Questioning context is not the same as disrespecting greatness. It's simply part of analyzing basketball history honestly. And that leads to the biggest question of all. Does this conversation change how LeBron's legacy should be viewed? That's where things become uncomfortable. Because if Carter's argument holds weight, then the discussion around LeBron's finals appearances becomes far more complicated. 10 finals appearances sound mythical on the surface, and in many ways, they absolutely are. But if 8 of those came through a conference widely viewed as significantly weaker than the West, then the narrative naturally changes. This isn't necessarily about tearing down LeBron's greatness. It's about examining the full picture. So now the debate belongs to everyone else. Does Carter make a fair point? Or are the championships, finals appearances, and overall achievements enough to settle LeBron's legacy forever? That's the conversation basketball fans continue arguing about today.